Hello everybody, it's me, the Lego Man Vince, and I'm here to make a countdown about Zelda Dungeons. So, quick few rules, it's only going to be on the 2D ones, and no 2.5D dungeons like Phantom Hourglass. Yeah. So, let's go.
Welcome back to a new segment I like to call Screw the Rules, I'm the Boss. The part of the show where I completely disregard the loose rule set I just established like 2 sentences ago. Initially, my number 6 pick was going to be the Great Palace, the final dungeon of the game. But I recently found out that my favorite segment of the game also happens to qualify as a dungeon by certain standards. That's right. We're talking about the great legend known as Weenie Hut Jr. Now, most people would call this a rage quit moment because they follow the first 2 steps. Step 1, be a guy. Step 2, be a quarter of the guy you thought you were. So, what do I like? What does the script say? What does the script say? So, I'm just going to say, first of all, it's technically not a dungeon. These enemy types are usually found in the overworld instead of dungeon settings. It's basically just a series of caves that you have to gauntlet yourself through. So for another thing, this is one of the few points where you actually have options on tackling the scenarios. Now, usually people go to Death Mountain first, but there is the option of going to Midoro Palace first. Usually All Might tells you to go to Death Mountain, but you can just Midoriya yourself over to the second palace if you feel like it. Also, a lot of dungeons kind of suck in Zelda 2, but I still enjoy them anyway because I'm just kind of that kind of guy. The kind of guy that can beat Zelda 2. Finally, it's your first genuine test of how adept you are at the game. Not only with your fighting skills, but also with your resource management. I really like the challenge. I like the pacing. You can actually get in. You can actually be one and done within just like 15 minutes if you start to get that flow going. You know. If you know, you know. And yeah, Candy Mountain, Weenie Hut Jr. on Candy Mountain is just a very fun dungeon. It is very snappy. It is very satisfying to figure out how to defeat those Dairas by just cheesing him, just like look at how I abuse these guys. I go in aggressively, which is probably a problem with the Countdown community. They have no fighting skills. They advertise the fighting games, but they have a skill issue when it comes to normal games. Yeah. Look at these Dairas. Look at Dairas, more like Deathras, because they're deathing themselves to die. But yeah, this is one of the places where this is just a place where I just have so much fun on future playthroughs. Honestly, I hope you guys give it a chance. I'm not even BSing. I'm not even bling slating, you know. That's what BS means, right? But yeah, I hope you guys give it a chance. Just be resourceful and be good at video games. I hope you understand this is all going to be like improv. Alright, get ready to discredit my every opinion just because I counted Four Swords as a good game compared to what most people consider better games. Like Link's Awakening or something like that. It is, in fact, the Palace of Winds. But yeah, this is a weird one. Yeah, the typical layout of a Four Swords adventure experience. You got 24 total missions throughout 8 areas of Hyrule. So 3 per mission, 3 missions per area. So basically every mission counts both as and not a dungeon in some regard, just because of the structure. No joke, I like Palace of Winds because it feels like Zelda 2. What a surprise! So what does it do to make it stand out? Zelda 2, Zelda 2. The best game ever that nobody can ever play because they're bad at video games.
Yeah, I think it's a breath of fresh air in a multitude of ways. It's straightforward. Don't really have to backtrack too terribly much. It's not really brain taxing, but honestly, since it's Zelda 2, I will give it a pass for it being a little bit on the easier side of things, despite being how late game it is. And the few weapons you get to use are fun to use, fun enough to use. I don't really have a full multiplayer experience, but on a single player, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. It is one of those areas where less is more. A lot of Four Swords dungeons can get a little too long, and so a more snappy dungeon just feels a lot better. I like how it does feel a lot more linear than a lot of other areas in Four Swords Adventures. You always know you're progressing, and you always know how far you are in the dungeon, just because, it's a tower. It's a tower. You can only go up from here. You can only go up. And the boss, he's a cool design. He's kind of a chump when it comes to easiness. I really like him. His name is Frostair, and he's a little dragony dude that commands a giant eye. That's how I like to imagine Frostair. Frostair activates his brain. Yeah, he's a Pop-Tarts commercial. He's got the little bit of red on the blue. He's so hot, it's cool. Yeah, it's a generally painless romp. Nothing too taxing. Sometimes you just need a little something easier, you just wanna chill and have a Zelda experience and not think too hard. That's what a lot of dungeons suffer in Zelda games. Freezing Pisa. A freezing tower. The mile-long tower of freezing Pisa. My pee is frozen. I went up the tower. I entered the stratosphere and my pee froze. Yeah. Freezing Tower of Pisa. The Sky Tower. The Tower of Winds. Yeah, that's what it's called. Good dungeon. I like it. Okay, now for some standard picks. Oracle of Ages. The worst, the lesser of the good Oracle games. Dungeon 7 is a good example of the worst of Zelda, of the worst of Ages. But when it comes to the best, it is Ancient Tomb. What a cool dungeon. Man, it's a little bit intimidating. There's 4 floors, and the third basement floor, and the second basement floor, the third, floor you navigate through, it can be a little intimidating. There's a lot going on. There is so much going on. But oddly enough, it's kind of linear when you really break it down. The first area is basically like four areas, like 4 rooms, and then you just go downstairs, you just go to the basement, and then you record your lines and such. Once you go to basement 1, you start to see these little the little turnstiles. They're called turnstiles, right? The turnstiles that make you feel like oh man, I'm gonna get lost, aren't I? I'm gonna be roundabout in so many. Maybe it's called a roundabout, not a turnstile. You never know. But no, it's actually the thing is, it's actually pretty linear. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, you don't have to be. It's not that daunting. Basement 1, basement 2. There is a lot going on. Yeah, it just. 3/4 of this dungeon, you're kind of railroaded, and then when you get to basement 2, that's when you start having a bit more freedom to explore. And wow, I really like all the variety when it comes to all 4 corners of the dungeon. It feels like you're doing quite a number. You gotta remember a lot of things that you've done in past dungeons, like using long hook, using your power bracelet to to anti-lava this lava, and sometimes using and then there's the point where you have to swim using the using the D-pad instead of the A button, which sucks. So this is why it's not quite higher. The swimming section, swimming in Zelda Ages specifically sucks, as in the late game specifically, because the mermaid for some reason they change up how you swim, the mechanics of swimming. Instead of pressing A, you have to press the control pad. You have to press the D-pad, which can be annoying, especially when A worked so fine. And continuing off of this, there's this blind spot that I always miss. It is so easy to miss. And it's probably like right here. It is so dumb. I really like the mini boss. His name is Blue Stalfos. What he does is that he's got the Aghanim style of reflecting the ball back at him. Power tennis. Magic ball tennis, as you were. It's funnier if you actually mess it up, because if you get hit, you get turned, you go back to 7 years you lost from Jabu Jabu's belly and play as a stupid child for a few seconds. I'm a green unit. But the best part goes to the boss, Ramrock. He is a bro. He is an absolute lad. And fun fact, he actually gets foreshadowed. You actually get foreshadowing on how to fight him from the room before, when you had to get to the the final stretch right before the boss key in that room. It tells you how to fight the boss so cleverly, like you never even think about it. Honestly, I sort of had guides, so I did it that way, but that's really cool to think about for any newcomers to the game. It's clever, and I think Ramrock's got a really cool design. He kind of reminds me of Dirge from the 2D Clone Wars, how he constantly switches up his attack patterns based on the equipment he has. Man, you're just like You're just like blonde, Blondie Wan Kenobi, just absolutely wrecking him up. But yeah. Yeah. So negatives, the water section sucks. The best part is Ramrock and a little bit of Blue Stalfos. I like Blue Stalfos. He's a fun dude. But yeah, that's my number 4. Alright, so I do love me non-linearity in Zelda games, and one Zelda game that really doesn't really get talked about is Link to the Past. The one where you don't even go to the past, you just go to a different dimension. So with that said, I'm going to talk about Thieves Town. Now, this dungeon itself is kind of a simple layout and not really standoffish in terms of a 2D dungeon. And honestly, you can skip most of the dungeon. You don't even have to do most of the dungeon. You don't even have to get the compass. You don't even have to get the map. You don't even have to explore around all that much. So what I'm going to talk about is a bunch of things that surround the dungeon rather than the dungeon itself. Though I will be talking about some highlights of the dungeon. Best thing going for it is how early you can access it. Once you get the hammer from the Dark Palace, boom, boom, boom. You can just go to Thieves Town. This is actually a rather beneficial dungeon to start early. Mostly because when you complete this dungeon and get the Titan's Mint, you can talk to this Froggo over here, and you can bring him back to the light world, and he'll just retemper your sword. And not only that, not only a sword upgrade, you can get an extra bottle. You can get yourself magic at half its cost. In the dungeon itself, you get Titan's Mint. It really opens up a lot of places, a lot of the world map from this point onward. Though you can't really do too many dungeons. It's just a very nice early dungeon that you can clear. Just very small benefits, like very minor benefits that really add up. But with that said, I really like the setup to the boss fight. Like, one of the most creative setups. You have to actually go into an actual dungeon within the dungeon. How about that? How about that for you? And then you save. What do you know? It's the maiden. It's one of the maidens. Yeah, just use your mirror, and then once you use the mirror, she's like, no, actually, I like being here, lol. So, you're kind of stuck with her for a little while, and when you get to the boss room, the maiden's just like, what the? What? And then she becomes blind, the thief. I don't like this fight. I actually don't do too badly against blind nowadays, but oh boy, Blind the Thief is not a fun early boss to fight if it's just a lot of fireballs everywhere. Fireballs. This can be a really tough fight. It can be like a Toho. It could be like a Toho fight, a diet Toho fight. And as a result, it can be a little bit daunting, the boss fight. Yeah, it's not the best. It's an awesome setup. It's like a Hollow Knight. It's like a Hollow Knight scary crab monster that mimics you fight. But yeah, Thieves Town. I like it how you can just access it early. I love how you can just do as you please and just. It's a fast one. Anyway, that's number 3. All right, so Minish Cap. Minish Cap kind of has hit and miss with its dungeons. A lot of them can like drag on. There were a couple of dungeons that I really liked. The first one I liked was the Temple of Droplets, and that used a lot of fun gimmicks. And the other one is going to be the number 2 on this list. It is the Deepwood Shrine. I really like the Deepwood Shrine. It is probably one of the best first impressions of the Zelda series. Like, I think it is one of the best. It is arguably one of the best dungeons in the 2D Zeldaverse. It just has a lot of cool stuff. First off, there's the barrel. That barrel is probably one of the coolest effects for a Game Boy Advance. How it just uses those rotation effects, those pixel effects, and it looks really cool. It looks really cool just rolling around the barrel and stuff. The Gust Jar is a really fun item. As a hard counter to Helmasaurs, I think it's one of the better ones. Since you get it really early, you can deal with Helmasaurs pretty quickly. And oddly enough, it actually has like a hard counter to these mushroom caps right here, these spore caps, I think they're called. And yeah, it's really weird having an enemy that isn't vulnerable to the sword, but like everything else it's vulnerable to. And I think the Gust Jar has a lot of cool uses. I don't know why they give it 3 tiers of power, because there's nothing they really do with the 3 tiers of power. I don't know. It just kind of looks cool, and that's about it. Yeah. It sucks in the least bad way possible, and it's a good utility item very early on. The only thing I do have an issue with regarding the Gust Jar is that it's really difficult to use the lily pads. You have to get into a rhythm. And even then, it's, there's a lot of stall to it. You want to move the other direction. If you're going one direction, you're fine. If you want to go like any other direction, yeah, you're gonna have to get used to like the stalling frames, and you feel it. You feel it. Yeah, I think they still at least use a little creativity with the lily pads, even for this early on, just for it to make actual platforms to get like an item in the basement, and then you just use it to move around. I really do like Eslo and how he just like helps you ease you into the dungeon as well as like, oh hey, there's a key. I don't know. And Eslo has really good commentary. I think it really shines in the first dungeon. Yeah, I think the best part about him is just that his commentary feels organic, like he's piecing it together as you are. Like he isn't obnoxious like Fee, and that is something I appreciate. And so sometimes he just acts like a grumpy old man, and I love him. Yeah, a lot of 2D Zelda dungeons, you kind of have to figure things out for yourself, and I think it's nice to have a little push, a little nudge in the right direction with your helper character. Best part of this dungeon, easily the boss. This boss is so hilarious. I love the fact that it's just a normal enemy. It's just, he's big because you're little. Because you're a literal, you're thought as the half-pint Link. And I really like the cutscene that brings up that introduces him in. He's not hard. He's not hard at all. And with that, he's also not obnoxious like some of the later bosses. I really like Green Choo Choo. He's not overplayed. You just wind gust his feet for a little bit, and then you just tip him over. You just go timber. You just wipe his face off with your sword. And also the heart pieces that you had to collect, they're really like easy to get and really easy to understand, and they're not out of the way, unlike some of the later dungeons. But yeah, Minish Cap had. I think the best thing about this dungeon is just sheer aesthetic. You're just seeing all this really normal stuff being put into a dungeon and how it's all crafted together to make some sort of, like, you probably see this in your backyard and think nothing of it, but, like, the mice are like, yo, that's a moving barrel. Yo. But yeah, number one thing I like is just the general aesthetic of introducing people into this Minish world. I think it aces it. I think it aces it perfectly. Yeah, really great dungeon. Okay, honorable mentions. One per dungeon, honorable mentions. Let's go. From OG Zelda, it's the Lizard. The Lizard! I think the best thing about it is how you get to it. You just constantly go up, and then you get there. And Dig Dogger is a pretty unique boss. Imagine defeating a sea urchin, and then you get the round of applause that you always wanted. That is the green reptile honor of badge. And there you go, that's a lizard for you. Dungeon 8 of Game & Watch Gallery's Legend of Zelda. The best thing about Dungeon 8 is that it's nearly over. Also, it's kinda easy compared to like Dungeon 6 and 4. From Link's Awakening, Catfish's Maw. What I like about this one is just the mini-boss. I think it is one of the most creative mini-bosses. He just steals the gimmick item of the dungeon, and it is hilarious. And Vadi's Palace from OG Four Swords. I think the palace itself has a really cool design. And I just really like Vadi. I think Vadi is a cool fight as well. Okay, and now we're at number 1. That's right, everybody. It's Oracle of Seasons. But what dungeon is it? It's dungeon number 7.
Explorer's Crypt.
It is a good dungeon. This dungeon is just great all the way through. It has one of the most unique gimmicks for a classic Zelda dungeon. If you stick around in 2 certain rooms for too long, you will be sent back to the beginning of the dungeon as like a curse. And what you gotta do is you gotta break the curse in order to move forward. I really like the fact that This is one of the rare times in seasons where you get mini bosses that talk. And, yeah, it's the Poe sisters as a reference to Ocarina of Time, actually. One of them's a ghosty with a sword, one of them's with a lamp. I think they're really cool mini bosses. They even apply their gimmick throughout the dungeon, in their mini boss fight proper. And I like how they have unique sprites where they're blowing out the torches, and that's really fun. That's a really neat little feature. That's a really neat little detail. The dungeon itself is also the home to the Rocks Cape, and I think the Rocks Cape is just so much fun. It is probably one of my favorite items. They use it in a lot of scenarios and uses in tandem with the Pegasus seeds to just zoom on over. It also gets good use out of your magical boomerang by just like wrecking house on these Armo statues right here. And it never feels too backtracky. There are points where it is a little backtracky. I mean, hey, the curse actually sends you back to the dungeon if you fail. But I think it has a really cool gimmick in the first half of the dungeon just with the curse. You know, breaking the curses. And the Poe sisters are a really fun fight as well. Yeah, even the second half of the dungeon is really cool, where you really got to learn how to use the Rocks Cape effectively. And I think this puzzle where you have to strategize your jumps in order to do this puzzle right. And I think it's a really cool puzzle right here. It's one of the few puzzles where you actually have to use your brain in Seasons. Imagine using your brain in Seasons. Couldn't be me, you know? I mean, I guess like the main boss is kind of weak, but he's also kind of fair, too. Gleeok from Dungeon 4 of the OG Zelda makes a return appearance here. He's not hard. Just do your spin attack and you'll never have to worry about the other head, you know, trying to hound you down. He also has a really unique attack where he tries to put you in a wall of fire. You know, he tries to keep you in one spot. It's an interesting attack for sure. It doesn't really do much for me. It like doesn't do much to me. He could have thought about this a little more, you know, is what I'm saying. It actually has like a bit of a Trinex sort of gimmick where if you defeat the two main heads, the body becomes a skeleton. That's right, folks. It's a skeleton. And then it just chases you down, and it's actually it's kind of funny because like it's just funny how easy it is in the second phase. I don't know. I think they just wanted to have fun. You know, they just wanted to have fun. This is like my first countdown in like 7 years. So leave no likes. I challenge you to leave no likes and no comments. If you comment and like, you failed the game, and I'm just gonna probably subscribe to you. You know, I don't even know. Okay, bye-bye.